Yeah, hi, thanks everybody for coming today. This is a special edition of AAMI News In Conversation, and essentially we're here at AAMI Exchange pulling in people who have great things to talk about. And today I'm here with three members from the Health Technology Leadership Committee, the HTLC, and we're going to talk today about a pretty interesting survey that was pushed out a little bit earlier this year. It went out to, I'm looking at it's a basically just over 1,400 individuals from the HTM community, and they were telling people what they value in a job, what keeps them there. So we're talking about retention in the HTM community today. I'm just going to run it off. Elizer, I'm going to start with you. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Elizer Kotapuri, and I'm the HTLC chair, of course the past chair, I should say, beginning now, and at the same time, in fact, I was also led that succession planning committee, subgroup, whatever we call it. Yeah.
I'm Angela Bennett, and I am a clinical engineering director with Sodexo in Charleston, West Virginia.
Al Gresch, Vice President of Healthcare Strategy for Accruent, but spent most of my career running a large in-house HTM department at an IDN in the Midwest.
Fantastic. And that's really why we wanted to get you guys in here. You all have slightly different perspectives from the field, and that really helps us better understand some of the results from this very interesting survey. But before I dive into that, I first wanted to just ask, okay, what is the HTLC? Why are you on it? What is this thing?
Yeah. So HTLC, it stands for Healthcare Leadership Technology Committee. Again, it's a committee that is comprised of the core group, I would say, the best of the best in the industry, being represented from different organizations, cutting across the lengths and breadths of the country. I don't think we have any international representation, but in terms of it, they come from the leaders of the different healthcare technology management groups from various organizations from the country. That's what it's all from. And we kind of come up with some of those burning topics in the industry to kind of pick and choose and elect, vote on them and work on those topics to publish something which is of essence where the other leaders of the organization, the HTM leaders, can use them off.
I think the key word is leadership, right? What differentiates our committee from the Technology Management Council, or the TMC, and our focus is on creating resources for HTM leaders and dealing with the issues that are key to leaders in the industry versus technicians.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think this group also, we lead those leaders to the resources as well as promote those resources, create the resources. So it's kind of nice to have that standardization to reference back to if, any new leaders come into the organization or the career field. It's nice to be able to kind of point them in that direction.
Great. And we were talking about, you're identifying really burning topics, and ultimately, you did a survey on HTM retention. So why is that a burning topic? Why is retention something that leaders should know about?
So, in fact, as I mentioned to you, we kind of, just brainstormed for some topics, and that was a topic that was unilaterally agreed upon by each and every representative member. So, and that's how overwhelmingly, and then we thought, if this is that big a concern for the members representing the committee, this must be the same thing outside as well for the other leaders. So that's why that was chosen as the one of the topic that we wanted to work on.
I think we've all heard the phrase "the Great Resignation," right? That we're all in, and people moving from organization to organization, and even from where they are to different industries. And it's right now it's so hard to find people to replace vacant positions. It's important to do whatever we can to retain the staff that we do have, and so I think the survey was key to find out what's important to people and how can we leverage that feedback to make sure that we aren't losing people to other organizations or other industries.
Gotcha. I don't know who wants to speak to this, but we're talking about transitions to other industries. I recently sat down with some other HTM professionals, and we talked about burnout, and that was one of the big things during the Great Resignation, during COVID. People were saying, "This is a lot of work. I'm near retirement age anyway. I'm just going to retire." A number that I've seen quite a lot is it's been estimated that nearly half or over half of all HTM folks are over the age of 50, so they're approaching retirement anyway. Mm-hmm. And once burnout happens, they're ready to go. So it's nice to say, okay, how do we keep them at least on long enough so that we can then transition into, training up the folks under them to fill those roles, those important roles.
Yeah, it's a couple of different things, Brian. It's not just keeping them, but keeping them happy and providing them with a good work-life balance while they are working to prevent the burnout. So I think that was part of the feedback that we got, and that provides our committee with some good sort of foundation for what we can focus on in the coming years from our group.
I'm actually going to jump in there just to say that, we mentioned work-life balance, and that was one of the top 3 things that literally every respondent said, yes, this is one of my top 3 priorities. The number 1 priority, which probably is not too surprising, is compensation and benefits. People want to get paid for the good work that they do, and then they'll feel obligated to work harder. But I did want to note that women actually did not put work-life balance as their top priority. The great majority of women did not put that. Instead, they prioritized internal opportunities for advancement and confidence in their leaders. So I was curious, does that imply anything? Angela, as a woman in HTM, do you want to speak to that?
I think that a female in this industry, since it is a male-dominated industry, I think we're past the point of wanting to be stay-at-home moms, wanting to be those housekeepers, and actually wanting to be in the workforce, with the males. And, we're competitive, and we want to make sure that we're in the same space and being able to stay competitive. And I think that work-life balance is important, but at the same time, I think men have also kind of allowed us to take on those roles, and they've kind of stepped backwards, not really backwards, but kind of said, okay, well, I'm okay with, taking the kids or being home or doing this. It's kind of a balance between the household responsibilities that has allowed women to, enter the workforce and then be present in these meetings and sit at certain tables. And I think now more than ever, I think that stigma of, it's only a man's world is going away. So I think we're going to start seeing that balance more and more as time goes on.
We got some responses yesterday at the ACCE symposium where we talked about this topic, and the question was asked of some of the gals in the room, and I think part of this too is the acknowledgement that they have to work so much harder to get to the same place that the guys do, and so they just have accepted that and have subsequently put the work-life balance a little bit further down on their list.
Wow.
See, some of the women, the ladies, the young ladies who come into the industry, they're equally good or even better than some of those who have been there. So we noticed it. I think it's not just about allowing them. I think they have played an important and key role with the smaller representation they have right now. They're doing great work. So I think it's a major a milestone within our own industry.
And you mentioned that small representation. I did want to note, AAMI had done a demographic survey year before, 2021, and we had found out, and this was represented in other surveys that have been done by other industry folks, where HTM world, about 10% of all HTM professionals are women, so it's a fairly small percentage. And yet of that subgroup, 14% of them are managers. Meanwhile, it was a much shorter percentage in men. From all total men, a smaller percentage were managers. So that might reflect this also. They're very driven. They want to prove something, and that's great. We want diversity. Competitive.
See, in fact, if I were to take it to a different level, women managers are tend to get into the core of the the people who they're managing, and then try to get in and then do a better job, then man, that's what is my experience. Again, I'm not sure if that particular perspective is shared all among, but maybe it's not represented in the survey or anywhere. But that's just my feelings and thoughts.
I would agree with you on that, Elizer. I've been going around doing a presentation on how to effectively motivate staff, and I did a keynote in Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago. And a couple of the key things are knowing your people and knowing what's important to them. And I think just at their core, women do a better job of that, just by the nature of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a note to all the guys out there: train up. They're beating us.
If we were to take this one to a different level, I would even like to see how many man managers are losing their technicians to female colleagues of theirs. So that's something to think about. Maybe it is a smaller subset. I would not be surprised that that's happening quite a bit, because they tend to have that a good touch in the industry.
I wanted to transition on to succession planning a little bit here, because we're talking about people who are prioritizing moving on and advancing in their industry. I should point out that also other minority groups, Black African Americans, Asian Pacific Islanders, they also ranked internal opportunities for advancement and growth very high compared to other groups out there. So, and that's really succession planning. Mm-hmm. You have to have a good succession plan in place, and you're more likely to keep your folks. The HTLC has a resource about that. Is that right?
Yeah.
We do.
This group that you're talking to helped develop that, and I know several people that have put it in place and are working on building that. And with all the discussion about filling roles, it's really, really hard to find qualified technicians that have the skill set to directly replace someone who's been at a senior level for many, many years, right? Well, if you have a succession plan in place and you've got those dominoes lined up and you've been working all along to prepare people to step into those roles, then the dominoes just fall when somebody leaves, and you really get to the point where the only positions that you ever fill are entry-level positions. And that's how it should be. That's very, very motivating to technical staff to know that they have that opportunity for growth and advancement.
Absolutely.
See, and I think Al brings up a very good point about the succession planning, and then how you need to nurture within. On the contrary to it, I think sometimes we may need to bring in from outside to kind of what should I say, for lack of better words, disruptive, again, a constructive disruptive attitude within the department to bring in that fresh energy into the department. I think that's it got to be a mix. It got to be a balance. We can't completely disrupt something quickly, but at the same time we have to be very thoughtfully and methodically do that, so that we are still going ahead, not kind of staying in one place.
Agreed, and I think it's important to, when I was talking about doing the stay interviews yesterday during the ACCE symposium, I think it was important that having a succession plan and working with your team, of working through it and letting them know what is the next step to get to the next level, I think that's important, and I think that helps retain those employees who really do want to stay, but they just don't know what direction they're going. So it's nice to help them create that direction, as well as nurture and make sure that they're meeting those goals that they've set for themselves.
The way that it's structured too, by clearly defining the requirements to move to the next level, and then working with your staff very individually to identify what their goals and aspirations are, it doesn't preclude any one group from having those opportunities, and I think that's a key as well.
I know we're coming up on time, Elizer, especially you have some place to run. I did want to wrap this up by saying, were there any key takeaways that you're hoping other leadership can get out of this report? And we're going to have a link to the report in this video description after this. But, anything in particular you want to say, hey, leaders out there, this is what you should focus on first and foremost?
See, I would encourage. I think it is pretty clearly mentioned in the article. I would suggest the leaders to kind of focus on two key areas: retention within the department, and again, that exodus from the department. Number 2, and number 3 is exodus from the field. So these are the things which they need to focus on. Why are people leaving my department? Of course, that's the first and foremost. The second thing is, why do they feel better to go to another department? Obviously, that's pretty interesting. The thing is, which we need to focus on, how do we retain within the field? Yeah. So, burnout, and there's another one, payout or pay up. So those are the two things I think which we need to focus on a lot more. I might be comparing it with another HTM department which they are paying low or whatever it is. But if the other department is paying a lot higher for a less skill set, what they're looking for, there's no wonder there is a brain drain to go off. And then we see this one again, me coming from another country, born in another country, coming in there. Again, there's a reason why people left one place to another place. And I've worked in 7 different countries, and there's a reason why I left that. So I don't think leaving is not a bad thing, but how do we retain them is something which we need to focus on.
The thing that I call out right at the beginning of the sessions that I do on how to effectively motivate staff it's the assumption that you're paying your people fairly. Certainly the survey corroborated that piece of it, right? And number 1, regardless of demographic, was fair pay, right? So I think that's the key to start with. That if you aren't paying your people fairly, you better get to work with your HR department to make sure that that's the case, because you are going to lose people to other organizations if that's not taken care of first. And then you can start working on the other things to make sure that you're doing the things that make people want to stay and work for you.
And I think, yesterday we also brought up recognition as well as recruiting and retention, and I think that's also a huge piece to this is, technicians, employees, associates, they want to feel valued. They want to know that they're doing a good job. They want to know that they're doing everything that they need to be doing. So, recognizing them, making sure that they feel valued, making sure that, those that are getting ready to retire, making sure that they still feel like they're part of the team instead of just counting them out. And I think that was one of the things that I had in my previous position with my previous company is I had 2 technicians who were kind of at that point. They were burnt out, they were tired, everybody was feeling that, and I think one of the reasons why they stuck it out was because, I reassured them that, I appreciate you, you're valued to this team, and I gave them mentees, to kind of mentor, and I think they really enjoyed that because they're like, okay, well, my knowledge that I've, created over the last 30, 40 years, I can pass on to somebody else, and I think that gives them a feeling of accomplishment and knowing that they did what they essentially set out to do, and that's make a difference. So I think, if they feel valued, they feel like they're making a difference, I think that's going to also help retain associates.
That is the key part. That's where I think, a lot of our colleagues should probably can do a better job at that, giving that assurance that, you're a valued member. We still have a lot of that importance, giving that dimension of wantedness is more important. I think that's where we need to learn quite a bit.
It's something we hear a lot is, our company is a big family. It's like, okay, but if you're a disjointed family, that doesn't mean anything. So it should be you're a family that values your family members. That's what I'm getting from you guys, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I'll say it again. We're going to put the survey results. There's a big report, and there's also a briefer write-up for anybody who's interested. That's going to be in a link in the description. And this has been fantastic. I appreciate it.
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it,
Have a good
Ryan.
one.
Thank you.
Thank you.